Welcome to Key Tech. Please describe this channel if you are interested in today's video. In recent years, the global semiconductor industry has been changing unpredictably. In order to curb the rapid development of China's semiconductor industry, the United States has signed a chip tripartite agreement with Japan, the Netherlands, and other countries, intending to put pressure on Chinese semiconductor companies through technology blockades and market isolation. However, with the gradual implementation of this series of measures, its chain reaction began to emerge, and the United States had to make concessions at certain key nodes, which not only revealed the complexity of the global semiconductor supply chain, but also foreshadowed the beginning of the reshaping of the global semiconductor landscape. Chip Tripartite Agreement, Global Semiconductor Encirclement and Suppression under the leadership of the United States. Since the signing of the Chip Tripartite Agreement, the United States, Japan, and the Netherlands have strengthened cooperation in semiconductor export controls, technology sharing, and market access, aiming to restrict China's access to advanced semiconductor technology and equipment. The United States is particularly active, not only strengthening sanctions on Chinese high-tech companies, but also pushing allies to follow up, trying to build a semiconductor ecosystem that excludes China. However, the implementation of this strategy was not smooth sailing, but instead triggered a series of chain reactions, the most notable of which was the United States concessions on certain key decisions. U.S. concessions, the mystery of Chongqing Storage's escape. Recently, the latest chip export restriction list, released by the United States, surprisingly did not include Chongqing Storage Technology, one of China's largest chip manufacturers. This decision quickly attracted widespread attention in the industry. After all, under such strict export control, Chongqing Storage's sparing is particularly abrupt. According to people familiar with the matter, behind this concession is the strong opposition of Tokyo Electron of Japan. As a major supplier of Chinese chip companies such as Chongqing Storage, Tokyo Electron is worried that if the United States puts Chinese customers, such as Chongqing Storage, on the blacklist, it will have a huge impact on its business and thus affect its share in the global market. The opposition of Tokyo Electron of Japan not only reflects its dependence on the Chinese market. The Chinese market accounts for 45% of its total revenue, but also reveals the complex relationship of interdependence in the global semiconductor supply chain. In the highly globalized semiconductor industry, any unilateral blockade measures may trigger a chain reaction and harm the interests of many parties. Therefore, the concession of the United States is actually a rational choice after weighing the pros and cons, and it is an acknowledgement of the fragility of the global semiconductor supply chain. Japan's dual strategy, cooperation and restrictions coexist. It is worth noting that although Japan has implemented 23 semiconductor export bans under pressure from the United States, its attitude is not completely one-sided. On the one hand, Japan actively responded to the call of the United States to restrict the export of some semiconductor technologies. On the other hand, Japan also left a backdoor for cooperation with China and other countries, such as key suppliers such as Tokyo Electron, continued to supply key equipment to China, indicating that Japanese companies are unwilling to become victims of U.S. unilateralism. Japan's dual strategy not only reflects its strategic considerations in the semiconductor field, but also reflects the complexity of competition in the global semiconductor market. Japan is well aware that completely cutting off ties with China will not only harm its own interests, but may also undermine the balance of the global semiconductor industry and trigger broader economic consequences. Therefore, while following the U.S. strategic orientation, Japan is also working hard to maintain its market position and interests. The cost and future challenges of the United States. Although the U.S. concession has temporarily eased the pressure on some Chinese chip companies, it does not mean that the United States will completely abandon its semiconductor blockade strategy against China. On the contrary, this concession may just be a tactical adjustment of the United States in the global semiconductor chess game, aimed at reducing market turmoil in the short term, while finding a more precise and effective way to strike. In the long run, the United States will continue to seek a dominant position in the global semiconductor field and maintain its dominant position in the semiconductor industry chain through technological innovation, market access control, and other means. At the same time, the United States will also increase its coordination with its allies and try to build a closer and exclusive semiconductor alliance to cope with the competitive pressure from China. For China, the U.S. concession is a positive signal, but it must not be taken lightly. China's semiconductor industry needs to continue to increase its independent research and development efforts, enhance the independent and controllable capabilities of the industrial chain, strengthen international cooperation, and expand market channels to cope with the more complex and changeable international environment that may appear in the future. Reshaping the global semiconductor landscape. The chain reaction of the chip tripartite agreement and the U.S. concessions on certain key decisions indicate that the global semiconductor landscape is undergoing profound changes. With the acceleration of technological iteration, the diversification of market demand, and the intertwined influence of market factors, the competition and cooperation in the global semiconductor industry will become more complex and changeable. For all participants, how to promote the healthy development of the global semiconductor industry while protecting their own interests will be a long-term and arduous task. In this process, the principles of open cooperation, mutual benefit, and win-win will be particularly important. Only in this way can we jointly meet challenges and create a bright future for the semiconductor industry.